The alarm screamed through the Galactic Concord Emergency Center. Red lights flashed across every screen. Communications Officer Terrell's 4 eyes widened as the distress signal decoded itself. Clara 7, the mining colony. Something had gone terribly wrong. "Get me the colony administrator," Terrell barked. His clawed hands flew across the controls. The connection crackled to life. What he saw made his blood run cold. Administrator Vexith appeared on screen. Her insectoid features twisted in panic. Behind her, chaos reigned. Vryn workers rushed past, their chittering voices raised in fear. Dust filled the air. Emergency lights cast everything in sickly yellow. "The lower tunnels collapsed," Vexith said. Her voice trembled. 15 kilometers deep. "We have 3,000 workers trapped down there. Life support is failing. They have maybe 72 hours. Maybe less," Terrell felt his heart sink. 15 kilometers. That was deep, very deep. The kind of depth that made rescue almost impossible. "We're sending help," he promised. "Hold on." The Concorde moved fast. Within an hour, 6 species had responded. The Etherians sent their prize vessel, the Silver Whisper. It could navigate tight spaces with perfect precision. The Teln sent 3 shuttlecraft equipped with molecular scanners. The Kreven offered their boar ship, small but powerful. Others followed. Each brought their finest rescue equipment. Terrell coordinated from his station. The rescue ships were all similar: small, fast, precise. That was how you did rescue operations in the Concord. You went in carefully. You extracted survivors one group at a time. It was slow but safe. Then the Earth transmission arrived. "This is Ambassador Chen of the Terran delegation. We received your distress call. We're sending the Prometheus. ETA 20 hours. Terrell pulled up the Prometheus in his database. His eyes went wide. Then wider. This couldn't be right. "Ambassador Chen," he said carefully. "There must be a mistake. The Prometheus is listed as an industrial construction platform. We need a rescue shuttle." Chen's face on the screen remained calm. Too calm. Humans always had that expression when they were about to do something crazy. "The Prometheus is our rescue ship," Chen said simply. "She'll be there in 20 hours. The connection ended." Terrell stared at the screen. Around him, other Concord officials gathered. They all looked at the Prometheus specifications. Length 4 kilometers. Mass 8 million tons. Crew 10,000. Classification mobile construction platform. "This is madness," whispered Velthar, an Etherian coordinator. "That thing will destabilize the entire planetary crust. They'll kill everyone they're trying to save." Down on Kalara 7, Administrator Vexith received the same information. She immediately contacted Earth's representative on the planet, a woman named Flores. "Your people are sending what?" Vexith demanded. "A construction platform." "Are you insane?" "We need delicate extraction. We need precision, not some massive brute of a ship that will crush my people." Flores looked tired. She'd been helping coordinate surface rescue efforts for 6 hours straight, but her voice stayed steady. "Administrator, I know this seems wrong, but trust us. The Prometheus isn't just a construction platform. It's a disaster response vessel. We built it for exactly this kind of situation. Your species has been in space for 50 years, Vexith shouted. Her antenna quivered with rage. 50 years. We've been running rescue operations for 3,000. We know what we're doing. So do we, Flores said quietly. We've had a lot of practice. The other rescue ships arrived within 12 hours. Terrell watched them work from orbit. The Etherian Silver Whisper was poetry in motion. It descended into the collapsed tunnels like a dancer. Within 2 hours, it emerged with 53 Vryn workers. The medical teams rushed them to safety. The Teln shuttles used their scanners to find stable pockets. They extracted workers in groups of 20. Slow, careful, by the book. After 18 hours, they'd saved 2,000 Vryn, a good number, but 1,000 remained, and the lower sections were becoming unreachable. The tunnels kept collapsing. Toxic gases were building up. The remaining workers were running out of time. Vexith watched the rescue numbers and felt despair creep in. They were doing everything right. The Concord's best ships. The finest rescue specialists. But it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. The human ship is here, someone announced. Vexith looked up at the sky. She couldn't see anything at first. Then the clouds moved. No, that wasn't clouds moving. That was something blocking the sun. The Prometheus descended through the atmosphere like a falling city. It was massive. Impossibly massive. 4 kilometers of metal and machinery. It didn't look like a ship. It looked like someone had taken an entire industrial district and launched it into space. Vexith felt her legs go weak. This thing was going to land on her planet, on her colony. It would destroy everything. But the Prometheus didn't land. It stopped 500 meters above the surface, and then it opened. Hundreds of hatches slid open along its hull. Equipment began deploying. Massive mechanical arms unfolded. Drilling machines the size of buildings lowered on cables. Scaffolding extended outward. In minutes, the Prometheus had transformed from a ship into something else. Something Vexith had no words for. A human voice came over the emergency channel. Female. Calm. Authoritative. This is Captain Maria Santos of the Prometheus. We're beginning rescue operations. All conquered vessels, please clear the operational area. Administrator Vexith, we're going to save your people. All of them. Vexith stared upward at the impossible machine hanging in her sky. Around her, Vryn workers stopped and stared too. Some pointed. Some prayed to the old gods, and deep below, 15 kilometers down in the darkness, trapped Vryn workers felt something they hadn't felt in 20 hours. Hope. 48 hours into the rescue operation, Captain Santos stood in the Prometheus command center and studied the holographic display. Green dots represented saved workers. They now had 2,912 green dots. That left 88 red dots. 88 workers still trapped. And those 88 were in the worst possible place. Show me tunnel section 77 beta, Santos said. The hologram zoomed in. The tunnel section appeared. Or rather, what was left of it appeared. It was 18 kilometers down. The deepest part of the entire mining complex. The collapse had been catastrophic there. Millions of tons of rock had come down. The space where the Vryn workers were trapped was now completely sealed off. Air quality? Santos asked. Her second officer, Commander Park, pulled up the data. His face was grim. Toxic. Carbon dioxide is at 40% and rising. They have maybe 6 hours of consciousness left. 8 hours until death. Santos felt the weight of those numbers. 6 hours. The Concorde shuttles couldn't reach that depth. Their own drill mechs couldn't either. 18 kilometers was too deep, too unstable, and there was too much rock in the way. She pulled up a communication channel. This is Captain Santos to all Concorde vessels. Please clear the operational area. Move back to a safe distance of 10 kilometers. Velthar responded immediately. His voice was sharp with suspicion. Why, what are you planning? Something dangerous, Santos said honestly. I won't risk your ships. The workers in Section 77 Beta are beyond rescue, Velthar said. His voice held sadness but also resignation. Even your impressive machines can't reach them. It's time to accept reality. We've saved over 97%. That's a miracle by any standard. Santos looked at the red dots on her display. 88 lives. Some of them were parents. Some were children. All of them were people who'd woken up 2 days ago thinking it was just another work shift. 97% isn't enough, she said. We're executing Protocol Lazarus, silence on the other end. Then, that protocol isn't in the Concord database. That's because it's a human protocol, Santos said. It's what we use when we're out of options. Stand by. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. 20 officers stood at their stations. They all knew what Protocol Lazarus meant. They'd trained for it. Hoped they'd never have to use it. But here they were. Sound general alarm, Santos ordered. Evacuate all personnel from the planetary surface except essential crew. I want the Prometheus at minimum safe manning. Anyone who doesn't need to be here gets off. That's an order. The evacuation took 2 hours. Shuttle after shuttle launched from the Prometheus, carrying crew to the safety of orbit. Santos watched them go. She'd given everyone the option to leave. Most had chosen to stay. Stubborn fools. She loved them for it. Down on the surface, Administrator Vexith received an urgent message from Captain Santos. She read it 3 times. Then she read it again. Then she started evacuating her command post. All personnel move back 20 kilometers, she ordered. Now drop everything and move. What's happening? Her assistant asked. The humans are about to do something that might save everyone or kill everyone. I'm not sure which. The Prometheus began deploying new equipment. These machines were different from the drill mechs. They looked like weapons, because they were weapons, or had been, plasma borers. The kind of thing you used to crack open enemy bunkers or hostile asteroids. The humans had modified them, added safety protocols, built-in limiters. But they were still incredibly dangerous. 12 plasma borers positioned themselves over Section 77 Beta. Their emitters glowed with building energy. Each one was powerful enough to cut through kilometers of solid rock. But that wasn't all. The Prometheus released something else. Millions of them. They looked like silver dust in the air. Nanites, microscopic machines. They flowed into the ground like water, disappearing into cracks in the rock. Observer Ketnal watched from orbit. He'd seen many things in his long life. But this was new. This was terrifying. "What are the nanites for?" his aide asked. "I think," Ketnal said slowly, "they're going to use them to stabilize the rock as they bore through it. The plasma will create the tunnel. The nanites will reinforce it instantly. It's brilliant. It's also insane. What happens if it goes wrong?" Ketnal didn't answer. They both knew. If it went wrong, the entire geological structure would collapse. The 88 trapped workers would die. The rescue teams on the surface would die. Maybe everyone within 100 kilometers would die. But if it worked, Captain Santos gave the order. "Activate plasma borers. 20% power. Let's not destroy the planet on our first try." The borers fired. 12 beams of superheated plasma lanced into the ground. Rock vaporized. The beams cut down through the planetary crust like knives through paper. But this wasn't uncontrolled destruction. Every millimeter was calculated. Every degree of heat was measured. The nanites flowed in behind the plasma, restructuring the melted rock into a stable matrix. The beams went down 1 kilometer. 2. 5. 10. The planetary crust groaned under the assault. Seismic readings spiked. But the geological stabilizers they'd placed on the first day held firm. The ground shook but didn't collapse. 15 kilometers, 16, 17. Inside the Prometheus command center, alarms screamed. Commander Park called out warnings. "We're getting microfractures in Sector 9. The nanites can't keep up. Reduce power to 15%, Santos ordered. Reroute more nanites to Sector 9. The plasma beams dimmed slightly. The fractures stopped spreading. The boring continued. 18 kilometers, we're through, Park shouted. We've reached Section 77 Beta. The chamber is intact. But they weren't done. The plasma borers shut down. Now came the delicate part. Human rescue teams in heavy exosuits descended through the newly created tunnel. It was still hot. Steam rose from the walls. But the nanites had done their work. The tunnel was stable. Sarah Kim was on the first team down. She'd been awake for 48 hours straight. She didn't care. 88 people needed help. The tunnel opened into the trapped chamber. Sarah's light swept across the space. She saw Vrin workers huddled together. Some were unconscious, others barely conscious. The air was thick with poison. "Rescue team to command," Sarah said into her radio. "We have visual on survivors. Deploying emergency atmosphere now." Her team released compressed air canisters. Clean, breathable air flooded the chamber. The Vrin workers gasped. Some started crying. They'd thought they were going to die down here. They'd already said their goodbyes. Sarah moved among them, checking vitals. Her team did the same. 88 workers. Some were in bad shape, but all were alive. "This is Sarah Kim to Prometheus," she said. Her voice shook slightly with emotion. "All 88 survivors are alive. We're bringing them home." In the command center, Captain Santos closed her eyes. She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Confirm that, Kim. All survivors accounted for?" "Yes, Captain." "All of them. We got them all." Santos opened her eyes. She looked at her crew. They were cheering. Some were crying. Commander Park was doing both. She opened a channel to Administrator Vexith. "This is Captain Santos. The operation is complete. All 3,000 workers are safe." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Vexith's voice came through. She was crying. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." Santos allowed herself a small smile. "Just doing our job, Administrator. Just doing our job." The Prometheus didn't leave after the rescue. That surprised everyone. The conquered vessels departed within hours. Their mission was done. They'd saved who they could. Time to move on to the next emergency. The humans stayed. "Why are they still here?" Velthar asked Observer Ketnal. They watched from orbit as the massive human ship continued hovering over Kalara 7. It had been 3 days since the last worker was rescued. 3 days, and the Prometheus showed no signs of leaving. Ketnal had been studying the human activities. He'd learned something about this strange species. They were full of surprises. "Watch," he said. "Just watch." On the surface, human teams were everywhere. But they weren't dismantling their equipment. They were building. The drill mechs that had saved 3,000 lives were now boring new tunnels. But these tunnels weren't for rescue. They were properly engineered mine shafts with ventilation systems, emergency exits, and safety features the original Vryn tunnels had lacked. The geological stabilizers remained in place. The humans were leaving them, permanently. "Those stabilizers are worth millions," Velthar said. "Each one. They're just giving them away?" Administrator Vexith stood in what used to be the disaster zone. Now it looked like the most advanced mining operation in the sector. The humans had rebuilt everything. And more than rebuilt. They'd improved it. Dr. Okafor found her standing there staring at the organized chaos of construction. "We should be able to finish in about a week," he said cheerfully. "The new medical center will be operational in 3 days. We're training your medical staff on the equipment we're leaving behind." "Leaving behind?" Vexith asked. "You're giving us a medical center?" Okafor looked confused. "Well, yes. You'll need it. Mining is dangerous work. You should have proper medical facilities on site." He paused. "Did you not have a medical center before?" Vexith felt shame wash over her. "We had a small clinic. Nothing like what you've built." "That's okay," Okafor said gently. "You have one now." Captain Santos was in her ready room when Ambassador Chen called. The ambassador looked amused. "The Concord is having a debate about you," Chen said. "About me personally?" Santos asked. "About humans in general. Apparently we've confused them. The Etherians are filing complaints that we violated rescue protocols. The Talon are trying to study our methods, and the Vryn have proposed putting us in charge of all Concord disaster response." Santos laughed. It felt good to laugh. The last few days had been intense. "What do you think will happen?" she asked. Chen smiled. "I think we just showed the galaxy what humans are really about. And they don't know what to make of us." Observer Ketnal submitted his report to the Concord Council. He'd spent days writing it, rewriting it. How did you explain humans to species who'd never encountered anything like them? In the end, he kept it simple. Humans possess advanced military technology. Their weapons are impressive, but their most sophisticated technology is medical and rescue-based. They have ships like the Prometheus that serve no military purpose. They have protocols for disasters we've never imagined, because they've lived through them all. They spent billions of credits and risked hundreds of lives to save 3,000 Vryn workers they'd never met. They did this without hesitation, without negotiation, without asking for payment. He paused in his dictation, thought carefully about his next words. Recommendation. Humanity should lead the Concord Disaster Response Network, not because they have the biggest ships or the most advanced technology, but because they have something we've lost somewhere in our 3,000 years of civilization. They have the absolute refusal to accept preventable death. The report caused chaos in the Concord. Half the council wanted to immediately elevate humanity to a leadership role. The other half thought Ketnal had gone insane. Velthar was in the latter group. He filed his own report. It was much less flattering. The humans are reckless. They risk too much. They bring overwhelming force to situations that require delicacy. They ignore established protocols. They're dangerous, but even Velthar had to admit one thing: they'd saved everyone. 3,000 workers. Not 300. Not 2,000. All of them. Back on Kalara 7, Sarah Kim sat with a group of young Vryn. They were workers she'd rescued from one of the collapsed tunnels. They'd asked to meet her. She wasn't sure why. A young Vryn named Click spoke first. His leg was still in a cast. The one Sarah had applied 18 kilometers underground. "We wanted to thank you," Click said. "We'd given up. Thought we were going to die down there. Then you appeared." Sarah felt uncomfortable with the praise. "I was just doing my job." "Why?" Another Vryn asked. "Why risk your life for us? We're not your people, not your species. We barely know each other." Sarah thought about that. It was a good question. Why had she gone down there? Why had Captain Santos risked everything? Why had humanity built the Prometheus in the first place? "On Earth," she said slowly, "we have a lot of history. A lot of it is bad. Wars, disasters, terrible things. But we also have this thing we do. When something bad happens, we come together. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe. If you need help, we help. It's just what we do. She gestured at the rebuilt mining complex around them. We learned a long time ago that the universe is dangerous enough without us being cruel to each other. So when we went to space, we brought that with us. You needed help. We had the ability to help. That's all the reason we needed. Clix looked at her with compound eyes that shimmered. Will you teach us? To be like you? Sarah smiled. You don't need to be like us. You just need to be you. But if you want to learn disaster response, we can teach you that. Queen Shalrix of the Vryn addressed the Galactic Concord. It was broadcast across thousands of worlds. Billions watched. She stood tall, her chitinous armor gleaming under the lights. Behind her, 3,000 Vryn workers stood. The ones who'd been saved, they were the real message. 3 days ago we expected to mourn, Shalrix said. We expected to lose 1,000 workers, maybe 2,000. We prepared for the worst. The Concord responded with their finest vessels. They saved many. We are grateful, she paused. Let the silence stretch, but then the humans came. They brought a ship the size of a city. They brought machines we'd never seen. They brought protocols we didn't understand. And they brought something else. Something we'd forgotten in our centuries of civilization. Another pause. Every eye in the galaxy was on her. They brought the absolute refusal to accept loss. They looked at our trapped workers and said, we will save them all. Not most. Not some, all. And then they did it. Shalrix gestured to the workers behind her. 3,000 lives. Not because we paid them. Not because we offered them anything in return. But because that's what mercy looks like. The humans showed us that advanced technology isn't about having the biggest weapons or the fastest ships. It's about having the wisdom to use that technology to preserve life. She looked directly into the camera, speaking to the entire Concord. I propose humanity for the Security Council, not for their weapons, not for their strength, but for their mercy. Because if they're willing to do this for us, imagine what we could all accomplish together. The vote wasn't even close. Humanity was elevated to the Security Council by the largest margin in Concord history. 78 species voted in favor. 3 voted against. 12 abstained. Ambassador Chen stood before the council and accepted the position with grace. But she had one condition: we accept, but we want something in return. We want funding for disaster response ships, not just for humans, for everyone. We'll share our technology, our protocols, our training. Every species should have the ability to save their people. The council agreed. Within a year, 5 more ships like the Prometheus would be under construction. Other species would crew them. The age of letting people die because rescue was too hard was ending, all because humans had refused to accept it. 5 years after Kalara 7, observer Ketnal stood in the dedication ceremony for the newest disaster response vessel. The ship hung in orbit above the conquered capital world. It was beautiful. Sleek where the Prometheus was blocky, elegant where the human ship was industrial. But it had the same purpose, the same mission. We name this vessel the Unity, the Concord speaker announced. May it serve all species in their hour of need. Ketnal felt pride watching it. The Unity was crewed by 12 different species. Humans had trained them all, shared everything. The galaxy was different now, better. All because one human captain had refused to accept loss. Captain Maria Santos retired from the Prometheus after 30 years of service. She was old now, gray hair, lines on her face earned from worry and too many sleepless nights. But she'd saved thousands of lives, maybe tens of thousands. She stood in her quarters on her last day, packing personal items. A knock on the door interrupted her. Come in. Dr. Okafor entered. He was old too. They'd served together for decades. Thought you might want company, he said. Santos smiled. Always. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. 2 old friends who'd seen too much, done too much, saved too much. Do you think we made a difference? Santos asked. Okafor laughed. Maria, we changed the galaxy. Before Kalara 7 species accepted losses in disasters. It was just how things were now. Now everyone expects rescue. Everyone demands it. We showed them it was possible, Santos nodded. But we also showed them the cost. All those resources, all that effort, just to save lives. Just, Okafor raised an eyebrow. Just to save lives. You say that like it's a small thing. You know what I mean. Okafor moved to the window, looked out at the stars. I think about Earth sometimes, he said. About our history. All those disasters, earthquakes, floods, famines. We learned to help each other because we had to. Because letting people die was worse than any cost. He turned back to Santos. We brought that into space, and the galaxy didn't know what to do with us. They'd forgotten that mercy isn't weakness, that caring for each other is the highest form of civilization. We reminded them. Santos felt tears in her eyes. She was getting sentimental in her old age. 3,000 Vrin workers, she said softly. That's what started it. 3,000 lives that every other species said were impossible to save. But we saved them anyway, Okafor finished. We always do. Sarah Kim was now Captain Kim. She commanded the Prometheus II, a newer vessel built with lessons learned from the original. She stood on the bridge as they approached a disaster zone. A space station. Critical failure. 2,000 people trapped. How long do they have? Kim asked. 10 hours, her second officer reported. Maybe 12, Kim studied the situation. The station was breaking apart. Debris everywhere. Rescue would be dangerous, difficult, maybe impossible. She thought about that day 18 kilometers underground. When she'd been young and scared. When Captain Santos had given the order that seemed impossible. When they'd saved everyone anyway. Sound general quarters, Kim ordered. Prepare for rescue operations. And get me the station administrator. We're going to need their help. What should I tell them? The communications officer asked. Kim smiled. Tell them we're here to save everyone. All of them. Back on Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, an old woman watched the news. The Prometheus II was executing a daring rescue. It was dangerous. Risky. Classic human behavior. The old woman's name was Chen. She'd been Earth's ambassador to the Concorde once. Now she was retired. But she still watched. Still cared. The rescue succeeded. All 2,000 people saved. The reporter called it a miracle. Chen called it Tuesday. This was what humans did now. What they'd always done, just on a bigger scale. Her granddaughter sat next to her. Young, bright-eyed, full of questions. Grandma, why do we spend so much on rescue ships? Wouldn't it be better to spend it on other things? Chen looked at her granddaughter, saw the future in her eyes, the future they'd fought for. Because of what we are, Chen said. Humans learned a long time ago that we're strongest when we help each other. That leaving people to die is unacceptable. We brought that belief to the stars. But the other species didn't believe that? They'd forgotten? Or maybe they never learned. They were so focused on being efficient, being logical, being practical. They forgot the most important thing. What's that? Chen smiled. That civilization isn't measured by your weapons or your technology. It's measured by who you save when saving them is hard. The Vrin colony on Kalara 7 thrived. The mines were safer now, more productive. The medical center the humans had left behind was the finest in the sector. Young Vrin trained there, learned human medicine. Human rescue protocols. Clicks was one of them. He was older now, no longer the scared young worker trapped underground. He was a rescue specialist, taught by Sarah Kim herself. He stood in the rebuilt tunnels, showed new workers the safety features, the emergency exits, the geological stabilizers that still hummed underground, keeping everyone safe. Why do we spend so much time on safety? A young worker asked. We could mine more if we didn't. Clicks looked at the young Vrin, remembered being that age. Remembered the collapse, the fear, the certainty of death. Because humans taught us something, Click said. They taught us that every life is worth the effort. That cutting corners is never acceptable when lives are at stake. They risked everything to save us. The least we can do is honor that by keeping each other safe. He showed them the plaque mounted at the tunnel entrance. It was simple. Just words, but they meant everything. No one left behind. Not anymore. Not ever. That was the human promise. The one they'd kept. The one they'd taught the galaxy. Captain Santos sat in her garden. Real earth plants. She'd brought them everywhere she went. A reminder of home. A reminder of why they did what they did. Commander Park visited her. He was retired too. They'd saved so many together. Did you see the news? Park asked. The Unity rescued 500 miners from an asteroid station. All of them. Not a single loss, Santos smiled. That's the 4th successful rescue this month. By non-human crews. We did that, Park said. We showed them how. We showed them why, Santos corrected. The how is just technology. The why is what matters, they sat in silence. Two old soldiers who'd fought a different kind of war. A war against death, against loss, against acceptance of the unacceptable. Do you have any regrets? Park asked. Santos thought about that. Thought about the sleepless nights, the close calls, the times they'd almost failed, the crushing weight of responsibility. No, she said finally. We saved people. That's all that matters. That's all that ever mattered. Years became decades. The Prometheus became a museum, a monument to what humanity had brought to the stars. Young people from every species visited it, walked its corridors, saw the equipment that had saved thousands. They read the stories. 3,000 Vryn miners, 2,000 station workers, 500 colonists. The list went on and on. The Prometheus alone had saved over 10,000 lives in its service. But more importantly, it had inspired others. The Unity, the Hope, the Sanctuary, ships built by other species, crewed by volunteers, all dedicated to the same mission. Save lives, all of them. No matter the cost, the galaxy had changed. Disaster response wasn't an afterthought anymore. It was a priority. Species competed to build better rescue ships, develop better protocols, save more lives, and at every ceremony, every dedication, every new ship launch, someone mentioned Kalara 7. The day humans showed the galaxy what they were really about. Not conquerors, not warriors, not explorers, saviors. In the end, that's what humanity's legacy became. Not the wars they'd fought, not the worlds they'd colonized, not the technology they'd developed, but the lives they'd saved. 3,000 Vryn miners who went home to their families. 2,000 station workers who saw another sunrise. Thousands more across hundreds of worlds. All alive because someone had decided they were worth saving. Because humans had looked at disaster and said, no, not today. Not on our watch. Because they'd built machines for mercy instead of machines for war. Because they'd refused to accept that anyone was beyond saving. The universe was vast, dangerous, full of threats. But now it was also full of ships dedicated to rescue, crews trained to save, protocols designed to bring people home. All because humanity had arrived in the galaxy with a simple philosophy. No one left behind, not anymore, not ever. And the galaxy was better for it. Captain Santos died peacefully, in her sleep at the age of 93. The entire Concord mourned. Flags lowered. Services held on 1,000 worlds. She'd saved so many, inspired so many more. At her funeral, Admiral Kim stood and spoke. She'd been that young rescue specialist once, scared, underground, saved by humans who refused to give up. Captain Santos once told me that mercy isn't weakness, Kim said, that caring for each other is strength. That the measure of civilization is who you save when saving them is hard. She lived that truth every day. Kim looked out at the assembled crowd, humans, Vryn, Etherians, Teln, every species. She expected a shuttle that day at Kalara 7. But Captain Santos didn't bring a shuttle. She brought salvation. And she taught us all that no life is expendable. No person is beyond rescue. No cost is too high when lives hang in the balance. Kim smiled through her tears. We are all here because someone like Captain Santos refused to accept loss. Let us honor her by refusing to accept it too, by building more ships, training more crews, saving more lives. She raised her hand in salute. No one left behind, Captain, just like you taught us. And across the galaxy, on ships dedicated to rescue, crews echoed those words. No one left behind. Not anymore. Not ever. That was humanity's gift to the stars. And the stars would never forget it.